There are places that seem to speak before a single word is heard, not through sound, not through movement, but through presence. These mountains rise beneath a restless sky, untouched by the hurry that so often fills our own lives. Clouds gather, light shifts, shadows drift slowly across the hills. Yet the mountains remain, not because nothing changes here, because they have never expected change to stop. Perhaps that is where their quiet strength begins. Standing before a landscape like this, the mind naturally becomes smaller. The endless conversations inside our heads lose some of their urgency. Questions that felt enormous only moments ago become quieter, not because they have been answered, but because something larger has gently placed them into perspective. The wind moves across the slopes. The clouds continue their slow journey overhead. Neither one stays. Neither one apologizes for leaving. Nature has never confused movement with loss. Everything passes. Everything belongs. The sunlight slips through an opening in the clouds, illuminating one hillside while another falls into shadow. A few moments later, the light moves again. The mountain does not cling to its brightness. The darker valley does not resent the light it has not received. Each accepts the moment exactly as it arrives. Perhaps we spend too much of life believing every season should look the same. We wish joyful days would last forever. We fear the difficult ones will never end. Yet the mountains quietly suggest another possibility. Every passing cloud changes the landscape. None of them changes the mountain itself. The path winding toward the distant peaks disappears around the hillside. It offers no promise about what lies beyond the next turn. Still it continues, not because every step is certain, because every step belongs to the journey. Life often unfolds in much the same way. Rarely do we see the whole road ahead. We see only enough for the next few steps, and somehow that has always been enough. The clouds continue gathering. Some appear heavy with rain. Others glow softly where the hidden sun still reaches them. Even the sky refuses to become only one thing. It carries brightness and darkness together. Neither cancels the other. Perhaps we do the same. Joy and uncertainty often exist within the same heart. Hope can remain even when questions have not disappeared. Peace does not require the absence of every storm. Sometimes it grows quietly beside them. The mountain has watched countless storms arrive. Wind has carved its cliffs. Snow has covered its ridges. Rain has shaped its valleys. Time itself has left its mark upon every stone. Yet none of those seasons diminished its beauty. If anything, they revealed it. Perhaps the parts of our own lives shaped by difficulty deserve the same kindness. Not because hardship is easy, but because it often leaves behind a quiet strength that comfort alone could never have created. The breeze moves through the grass. The hills seem alive beneath the changing light. Nothing remains exactly as it was a minute ago. Yet the landscape never appears unfinished. It never worries about becoming complete. It simply continues becoming itself. There is something deeply restful about that. The pressure to arrive somewhere finally begins to loosen. Perhaps there has never been a finish line waiting beyond the next mountain. Perhaps life has always been more like this winding path, a series of quiet steps, changing skies, unexpected light, moments of shadow followed by moments of warmth, none permanent, all belonging. As the clouds continue drifting overhead, another gentle realization begins to appear. The mountain does not ask the sky to remain clear. It does not resist the coming storm. It stands exactly where it is, allowing every season to pass across its face. Maybe peace begins there, not in controlling the weather of our lives, but in discovering the quiet place within us that remains, even while the clouds continue to move. The clouds continue gathering above the peaks. Some grow darker, others quietly drift apart, allowing narrow streams of light to reach the valley below. The mountains welcome both without preference. They do not celebrate the sunlight. They do not resist the storm. Each belongs to the same sky. Perhaps this is what patience looks like, not waiting for perfect conditions, but remaining steady through every changing one. The hillside glows for only a few moments before another cloud passes overhead. The light disappears as gently as it arrived. Nothing has been taken away. The mountain simply wears a different expression now. How often do we mistake change for loss? A season ends. A chapter closes. Someone leaves. An old version of ourselves quietly fades into memory. The mind immediately begins measuring what is gone. Nature seems to notice something else. It notices what has arrived. The wind carries cool air across the open slopes. The grass bends together as though responding to something older than language. No single blade resists. Together they move. Together they return. There is grace in that quiet flexibility. Strength is often imagined as something rigid, something unchanging. Yet the hillside survives because it yields to the wind. The clouds survive because they continue moving. Even rivers remain alive because they never stop flowing. Perhaps peace has never asked us to become immovable. Perhaps it has only asked us to remain present while everything else moves. Far above, the cliffs stand against the restless sky. From a distance, they appear permanent. Yet every stone has been shaped by countless years of rain, frost, and sunlight. Even the strongest mountain has become what it is through change. Nothing here has escaped time. Everything has simply learned to belong within it. There is comfort in that thought. We often believe we must become finished before we can rest, as though one day every question will disappear. Every uncertainty will finally settle. Every part of ourselves will become complete. But the mountains tell another story. They are still changing, still weathered by each passing season, still becoming, and yet they are already enough. The narrow path climbing toward the ridge disappears beyond another curve. No traveler can see its final destination from here. Still, the path continues. It does not need to reveal the entire journey before the next step can be taken. Perhaps certainty has never been the companion of meaningful journeys. Perhaps trust has always walked beside them instead. A distant silence settles across the valley. Not the absence of sound, the absence of hurry. The wind continues. The clouds continue. Somewhere unseen, birds continue their own quiet lives. Everything moves according to its own rhythm. Nothing competes. Nothing rushes. The sunlight briefly returns, touching the highest rocks with a warm glow. For a few precious moments, the mountains seem almost golden. Then the light shifts once more. The brilliance fades. Yet the beauty remains. Perhaps beauty has never belonged to the light alone. Perhaps it has always lived within the mountain itself. The same may be true for us. There are days when everything feels bright. Days when confidence comes easily. Days when hope seems effortless. There are other days when clouds gather overhead. Neither season defines who we are. They simply reveal different parts of the same landscape. The sky grows heavier now. Rain may arrive soon, or perhaps it will pass beyond these peaks without falling. The mountain does not need to know. It simply remains open to whatever comes. Watching this quiet landscape, another understanding slowly begins to appear. Maybe peace does not come from predicting the weather ahead. Maybe it comes from trusting that whatever sky appears above us, there is something within us capable of meeting it. The clouds continue moving. The mountains continue standing. The wind continues passing through the grass. And somewhere within that endless rhythm, the heart begins to remember that calm is not found beyond the storm. Sometimes it is found in the quiet certainty that we can remain even while the storm passes overhead. The sky grows heavier now. Clouds gather in quiet layers above the mountains. Some carry rain, some simply drift past. No one standing here could say which will remain and which will disappear beyond the next ridge. The mountains seem unconcerned. They have watched too many skies to become attached to any single one. Perhaps wisdom begins like that, not by predicting every change, but by no longer believing that every change must be feared. The cliffs rise toward the clouds with remarkable calm. Their sharp edges have been softened by centuries of wind and weather. Time has shaped every surface. Nothing here became strong overnight. Every ridge tells a story written slowly, one season at a time, one storm after another. There is comfort in remembering that. We often ask ourselves why growth feels so slow, why understanding takes so long, why healing rarely follows the straight path we imagine. The mountains offer no quick answers, only their quiet existence, only the reminder that the deepest transformations often happen too gradually to notice. The light slips through another opening in the clouds. A single hillside brightens while the valley below remains in shadow. The contrast is striking, yet both belong to the same landscape. One is not more complete than the other. Perhaps the same is true within ourselves. There are parts of life that feel clear. Other parts remain uncertain. Moments filled with confidence. Moments filled with doubt. Neither one cancels the other. They simply exist together, like sunlight and shadow sharing the same mountain. The wind becomes stronger for a moment. Grass bends across the hillside in quiet waves. Nothing resists. Nothing breaks. Everything moves together. There is something deeply peaceful about watching nature respond instead of react. The hillside never argues with the wind. It simply allows the moment to pass through. How much of our own restlessness comes from resisting what is already here? Not the great challenges of life, the smaller ones, a delayed plan, an unanswered message, a thought we wish would disappear, a memory we keep trying to outrun. Perhaps the struggle often lasts longer than the moment itself. The mountains seem to understand another rhythm, one that allows everything its season. Rain when rain arrives, sunlight when the clouds open, silence between both. The narrow path continues climbing toward the highest ridge. It disappears behind stone and grass, hidden from view. Still, there is no sense that it has been lost. Only that part of the journey cannot yet be seen. Life often feels that way. We believe we need certainty before we can continue. Yet every meaningful path eventually bends beyond our sight. Perhaps trust is simply the willingness to keep walking even when the next turn remains hidden. The clouds slowly begin to shift again. Small openings reveal patches of blue. The landscape changes without effort. No announcement, no dramatic beginning, only another quiet transformation. Nature never celebrates becoming something new. It simply continues unfolding. Maybe we do not need to announce every change within ourselves either. Some of the most important ones happen silently. A little more patience, a little less fear, a quieter heart than yesterday. No one else may notice, yet everything begins to feel different. The mountains remain beneath the moving sky, unshaken, not because nothing happens to them, because they have stopped expecting permanence from passing weather. Perhaps that is the quiet invitation this landscape offers, not to search for a life without storms, but to become like the mountain itself, steady beneath changing skies, open to light, unafraid of shadow, trusting that every cloud, no matter how heavy, will eventually continue its journey. And when it does, the mountain will still be here, silent, patient, exactly where it has always been. The mountains remain long after the clouds have changed. They do not remember which storm was the strongest. They do not keep count of how many days the sun shone without interruption. Every season passes across them. Every season leaves. Still they remain. Perhaps there is a quiet freedom in no longer holding on to every passing experience. The sky continues its slow conversation with the earth. Clouds drift. Light returns. Shadows stretch across the slopes before quietly fading once again. Nothing stays. Nothing needs to. The beauty of this place has never depended upon permanence. It has always lived within its willingness to change. The wind has softened now. The grass rests peacefully across the hills. Even the silence feels different. Not empty, not waiting, simply complete. Perhaps silence has never been the absence of something. Perhaps it has always been the presence of enough. Looking across these mountains, it becomes difficult to imagine them wishing for another shape, another height, another place to stand. They have become exactly what countless seasons have allowed them to become. No more, no less. How often do we forget to offer ourselves that same kindness? We measure ourselves against people walking entirely different paths. We compare beginnings with someone else's middle, quiet days with louder ones, invisible growth with visible success. The mountains compare themselves to nothing. Their only work is to remain faithful to their own landscape. The narrow trail still disappears beyond the hillside. Its destination remains hidden. Yet somehow it feels trustworthy. Not because every turn is visible, because every turn belongs. Life has always unfolded one unseen step at a time. Looking backward, the path often seems obvious. Looking forward, it rarely does. Still we continue. Still the road quietly carries us onward. The clouds begin separating once more. Small windows of blue appear above the peaks. Light spills gently across the highest cliffs, revealing textures that moments ago were hidden beneath shadow. Nothing new has appeared. The mountain was always there. Only the light has changed. Perhaps understanding arrives in the same way, not by becoming someone new, but by seeing more clearly what has quietly existed within us all along. There has always been patience beneath the fear, stillness beneath the noise, hope beneath uncertainty, like sunlight waiting beyond the clouds. The mountain never searched for the light. It simply remained until the clouds moved on. There is something deeply reassuring about that. Not every answer needs to be chased. Not every season needs to be hurried. Some things reveal themselves only to those willing to remain. The sky grows calmer. The wind carries one last cool breath across the valley. Everything feels settled, not because the weather has become perfect, but because nothing here asks perfection from the moment. The hills accept the clouds, the cliffs accept the rain, the sunlight accepts that it will eventually fade. Everything belongs because nothing insists on being different. Perhaps peace has always lived inside that same acceptance. Not surrender, not indifference, simply the quiet understanding that life has its own rhythm, a rhythm far older than our plans, far gentler than our worries. The mountains continue standing beneath the endless sky. Tomorrow another storm may arrive, or perhaps the morning will open beneath clear blue light. The mountains do not need to know. Their calm does not depend upon tomorrow. It belongs entirely to this moment, and perhaps ours can too. The wind will move again. The clouds will gather again. The light will return again. Life will continue changing, just as it always has. But somewhere beneath every changing sky, beneath every season, beneath every unanswered question, there remains a quiet place that no storm can reach. A place as steady as these mountains, as patient as the passing clouds, as open as the endless sky above them. And perhaps for this moment, simply remembering that is enough.